Something extraordinary is unfolding right now. Across the world, people are boarding planes headed for one destination, Israel. They're coming from India, Ethiopia, France, Ukraine, from places you wouldn't expect. And when they arrive, many of them break down in tears, kiss the ground, celebrate like they've just won the lottery. Over the last 10 years alone, 250,000 people have made this journey. But here's what makes this so fascinating. Prophets predicted this exact scenario thousands of years before airplanes even existed. So the real question is, if they got this right, what else is about to happen? Let's find out. This story begins about 4 millennia ago with a man named Abraham. God made him an incredible promise. Your descendants will become a mighty nation. That promise passed through his son Isaac, then to his grandson Jacob, the one God renamed Israel. Jacob fathered 12 sons. Those sons formed 12 tribes. Those tribes grew into the nation of Israel. They endured slavery in Egypt for generations until a leader named Moses brought them out through miraculous events that changed history forever. Eventually, they settled in their promised land. King David united them into a powerful kingdom with Jerusalem as its capital. His son Solomon expanded that power even more, building a magnificent temple that became famous throughout the ancient world. For a brief moment, Israel stood at the peak of its glory. But that golden age didn't last. Before we continue, please subscribe, hit the notification bell, and like this video if you want to spread God's truth. Let's continue. When Solomon passed away, political tensions exploded. The kingdom fractured into 2 separate nations. 10 tribes formed the northern kingdom, while just 2 tribes, Judah and Benjamin, remained in the south. The northern tribes drifted away from their faith. In 722 BCE, the mighty Assyrian army invaded and scattered those 10 tribes across distant territories. They vanished from the pages of history, gone without a trace. The southern kingdom survived a bit longer, but not by much. In 586 BCE, Babylon laid siege to Jerusalem, destroyed Solomon's temple, and forced the survivors into exile far from home. Decades passed before a Persian ruler allowed some to return and rebuild. But they never truly regained their freedom. Then in 70 CE, the Roman Empire crushed them once again, demolishing the rebuilt temple and dispersing the Jewish people so thoroughly that it seemed they'd never reunite. What followed was an exile that would span nearly 2,000 years. Imagine being separated from your homeland not just for your lifetime, but for 70 consecutive generations. That's the reality the Jewish people faced. Wherever they settled, whether in European cities, North African villages, or Asian communities, they encountered resistance. Expelled from kingdoms. Forced into isolated neighborhoods. Targeted by violent attacks meant to destroy their culture and faith. Century after century, the pattern repeated across different lands and rulers. But despite relentless persecution, they held onto their identity through oral traditions, religious practices, and the unwavering belief that one day they'd return home. The 20th century brought unimaginable horror. During the Holocaust, 6 million Jewish lives were systematically extinguished. Entire communities that had flourished for centuries disappeared within years. Against all odds, their collective spirit survived. Then 1948 arrived. Something unprecedented happened. Israel was reborn as a nation after nearly 2 millennia. Think about how impossible that sounds. No other civilization in human history has lost their homeland for 2,000 years and reclaimed it. The great empires of the past, Babylon, Assyria, Rome, where are they now? Extinct. Yet Israel returned from the dead. 26 centuries earlier, the prophet Ezekiel wrote, "I will gather you from the nations and restore you to your own land." When those words were written, they seemed like fantasy. After Rome's destruction in 70 CE, they seemed utterly impossible. But in 1948, the whole world witnessed prophecy transform into reality. And that was merely the beginning of something much larger. Since Israel's rebirth, Jewish people have been returning from every corner of the planet. These aren't just ordinary immigration stories. These are accounts that challenge everything we think we know about history. Consider the Bnei Manasseh living in India. They're descendants of Manasseh, one of those supposedly lost northern tribes from 722 BCE. For 27 centuries, they preserved their Jewish customs in isolated mountain villages. They observed the Sabbath, maintained dietary laws, and never forgot their heritage. Beginning in the 1990s, thousands started returning to Israel. Wrap your mind around that. A tribe that vanished before the Roman Empire even existed is now coming home in the era of smartphones and social media. The Ethiopian Jewish community tells an equally remarkable story. Separated from mainstream Judaism for over 2,000 years, they maintained their faith in Ethiopia's highlands. Even when authorities tried forcing them to convert to Christianity, they refused to abandon their identity. In 1991, Israel executed a dramatic rescue operation. Within just 36 hours, they airlifted 14,000 Ethiopian Jews to safety. Picture stepping off a plane in a land your ancestors left millennia ago. Many couldn't stay on their feet. They dropped to the ground, overcome with emotion. Today, more than 150,000 Ethiopian Jews call Israel home. Contemporary events tell the same story. When anti-Semitism intensified in France, immigration numbers jumped 137% in a single year. When violence erupted in Ukraine, 130 Jewish refugees found safety in Israel. Even from prosperous nations like the United States and Canada, 2,000 people chartered a flight together, leaving comfortable lives behind because they sensed something significant was happening. The prophet Isaiah wrote, "I will bring your children from the east and west, from the north and south." Look at arrival data from Israeli airports. People are literally coming from all four compass directions. Here's where the story takes a fascinating turn. Ezekiel's prophecy wasn't vague. He specifically stated, "They will no longer be divided into two kingdoms." Remember that split after Solomon's reign? North and south, separated for centuries? Today they're reunited as a single nation. But there's another prophecy that generates serious discussion. The book of Revelation describes 144,000 people sealed from Israel's 12 tribes. It doesn't say some group of believers. It explicitly names the tribes: Judah, Reuben, Gad, Asher, and the rest. Many people prefer interpreting this symbolically. They want it to represent something spiritual rather than literal. But consider this. Why would the text meticulously list 12 specific tribal names if it meant something completely different? Here's the critical point. For this prophecy to unfold, those tribes must actually exist and be identifiable. For 2,000 years, that seemed absolutely impossible. The northern tribes had vanished. Genealogical records were lost. Bloodlines had mixed beyond recognition. Yet today, we're watching descendants of these ancient tribes return to Israel, verifying their ancestry through DNA analysis, preserved traditions, and historical documentation. The Apostle Paul tackled this question in Romans. After Israel rejected Jesus as Messiah, people wondered if God had abandoned them. Paul's response was definitive: God's gifts and calling are irrevocable. They cannot be withdrawn or cancelled. God's covenant with Abraham had no expiration date. It wasn't contingent on perfect obedience. It was eternal. The fact that Jewish people are returning after 2 millennia demonstrates that God honors his commitments, no matter how many centuries pass. So what does all this actually mean for us today? This transcends geopolitics or demographic trends. Every plane touching down at Israeli airports carrying returning Jews represents ancient prophecies stepping off the pages of Scripture into modern reality. Think about it. Prophets writing 2,500 years ago accurately predicted that Jews would scatter across every nation, endure unimaginable suffering, somehow preserve their identity, and eventually return to their homeland. We're watching those predictions materialize in real time. If they accurately predicted all of that, What about their other prophecies? The ones describing events that follow Israel's restoration? The ones about the end times? Multiple prophets, Isaiah, Ezekiel, Zechariah, and John in Revelation, all described Israel's restoration not as the final chapter, but as a signpost indicating we're approaching something much bigger. Consider this. If something as impossible as a nation reconstituting itself after 2,000 years has actually occurred, then perhaps the other impossible prophecies deserve more serious consideration. Israel's gathering isn't the conclusion. It's the setup for what comes next. Here's my final thought. We're the first generation in 2,000 years watching ancient prophecies unfold in real time. Previous generations read these texts and wondered if they'd ever see fulfillment. We can watch it on the news every single day. The question isn't whether prophecy is legitimate anymore. The evidence arrives at airports daily. The real questions are, what happens next? And are we paying close enough attention? If this opened your eyes to something new, make sure you're subscribed. We're exploring more of these connections. Leave a comment and share your perspective. Are we witnessing prophecy, or is this just an extraordinary coincidence? Thanks for being here. See you next time.